Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. What I saw on my TV wasn't a movie. It was my living room. Let me explain. I had come home early. Not for any reason, just a gut feeling. I walked in, nothing seemed off. Lights off. Her shoes by the door. Quiet. I dropped my keys, went to grab a drink, and the TV, our living room TV, was on. But it wasn't playing Netflix. No home screen. No sound. Just a paused video. At first, I thought maybe she left a screen mirror running. But when I moved closer, the air left my lungs. It was a paused frame of her. On our couch. Hair tied back. A half-drunk glass of wine next to her. And sitting right next to her, a man I had never seen before. Shirtless. Laughing. I didn't press play. Not immediately. I just stood there like some background character in my own life. I checked the timestamp. Recorded last night. I had been working late, pulling a double shift to cover for my coworker's kid's surgery. She had told me she was going to sleep early. Said she had a headache. My hands were shaking when I finally hit play. She didn't look sick. She looked alive. Giddy. Like she hadn't been in years. The man leaned in, kissed her neck. She giggled. She said, "God, I can't unhear it. He still thinks I'm his forever. Isn't that adorable?" I paused the video again. There were crumbs on the coffee table. A slice of pie missing. That was my pie. I had made it last weekend for us. She had said she wasn't in the mood for sweets anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I didn't even cry. I just unplugged the TV. And then, as if fate had a twisted sense of humor, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Hey babe, headed to bed early again. Don't wake me if you get home late. Red heart." That message, like a system crash, hit me right in the soul. I stared at it, and all I could think of was one phrase. Request timed out. Because that's what it felt like. Like my heart, my trust, our marriage, everything, had sent a signal and received nothing in return. I didn't go upstairs that night. I sat in the kitchen, lights off, my phone on the counter, staring at it like it might apologize on her behalf. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her come home, kiss me on the cheek like nothing happened, ask me if I fed the cat. So I waited. Long enough for her to believe her lie had worked again. I listened through the floorboards as she climbed into our bed. My bed. Alone, now tainted with whatever scent he left behind. At 3:11 a.m., I started packing. Not in a dramatic movie scene kind of way. Quiet. Strategic. I took only what was mine. Every time I pulled something from a drawer, I remembered a version of myself that had once lived here. Hopeful, naive, stupid. I folded my college hoodie she used to wear when she was cold. I grabbed the book I'd been meaning to finish since last Christmas. Toothbrush. Passport. Birth certificate. External hard drive. And the pie dish. I don't even know why, but I couldn't leave it behind. It felt symbolic, I guess. At 4:02 a.m., I left a note. Not some heartfelt letter or angry rant. Just 2 words. I know. That's it. By 5 o'clock, I was gone. I didn't even have a destination. I just drove. The highways looked different. I always thought freedom would feel like wind in your hair and some upbeat song on the radio. But it was silence. Just silence. And the image of that video stuck in my brain like a pop-up ad that wouldn't close. Her smirking. Him leaning in. The glass of wine that should have been shared with me. I ended up 3 towns over, in a motel that smelled like damp carpet and disappointment. The kind of place where no one asks questions. The man at the front desk gave me a look, like he knew I wasn't there for business or vacation. I didn't care. I just needed a bed that didn't lie to me. Lying there, ceiling fan squeaking every 3rd rotation, I realized something. She didn't just cheat on me. She erased me. Rewrote the story of her life while I was still living in it. And the worst part? I had no idea which part of me she deleted first. The next morning, I didn't wake up. I just stopped pretending to sleep. The motel air was thick, like breathing through gauze. My phone had died overnight. No texts. No missed calls. Just a blank screen, which somehow felt more honest than anything I'd seen in weeks. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like hours, holding my wedding ring in my palm like it might whisper an answer. I didn't cry. I couldn't. There was something colder than sadness inside me now. Something bitter, sharp, and quiet. Around noon, I finally turned my phone back on. 3 texts from her. The first, "Hey, did you leave early for work?" The second, "Emory." The third, "Can you please just call me?" No panic. No guilt. Just confusion, like I was the one who'd gone missing from her story. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I couldn't find a single word she deserved. That afternoon, I drove to our old apartment building, the one we lived in before we bought the house. I don't know why. Maybe I was chasing a version of us that still laughed together over burnt grilled cheese sandwiches and squeaky floorboards. But the building was being renovated, stripped, painted, gutted, just like me. That evening, I parked 3 blocks from home. I watched from a distance, hiding like some pathetic cliché in a parked car. Her car was there, lights on in the living room, curtains open, almost carelessly. I saw her silhouette pass by once, holding something in her hands. A wine glass, probably. Maybe his. I told myself I'd just leave, that I'd drive off and never look back. But instead, I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said, breathless, like I had just caught her in the middle of something. "Where are you?" I didn't say a word. "Jason?" she asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Jason." I ended the call. That's the moment I realized she never loved me in the way I thought she did. Because love doesn't forget your name. Not in a moment of panic. Not when the mask slips. She wasn't sorry. She was scared she'd have to lie to herself without me. I didn't sleep again that night. I just stared at the ceiling of the motel room until the plaster patterns started looking like faces, some angry, some just blank. My thoughts were loud. Not chaotic, but methodical, like someone was rearranging files in my head. I kept replaying her voice, saying Jason. It wasn't just a slip. It was a name worn with familiarity, comfort. She didn't say it like a mistake. She said it like muscle memory. Like her soul had already adjusted to living a life without me, and I was just the shadow that hadn't gotten the memo. By morning, something in me cracked. I wasn't angry in the way people break dishes or punch holes in drywall. I was angry in that quiet, surgical way, like something inside me had turned sterile and sharp. I drove back to the house, not to talk, not to scream, but to see, to observe. She wasn't expecting me. I knew she wouldn't be, and I knew she'd be careless. Her car was gone when I pulled up. I let myself in. The hallway smelled like her shampoo, lavender and peppermint, and that scent used to feel like home. Now it made my stomach turn. I moved slowly, like the house might shatter if I walked too loudly. Nothing looked different. The furniture sat obediently in its place, pretending like it hadn't witnessed betrayal. But something was off upstairs. The hallway closet was locked. It was never locked. I stood there staring at the door, heartbeat suddenly louder than my thoughts. After a few seconds of hesitation, I went to the kitchen, found the thin screwdriver I always used to fix her glasses, and returned to the hallway. It took 2 minutes. The lock popped open with a soft click. Inside wasn't coats or linens. It was a setup, a small desk, a second phone, a black notebook, a man's hoodie, not mine. I didn't move. I just stared at it all like I'd walked into a parallel version of my own life, one where I didn't exist. My hands were shaking again, but not from nerves. From clarity. This wasn't new. This wasn't random. She had built a room for him inside the home I paid for. I reached for the notebook. I didn't even have to open it. His name was on the cover. Jason. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I stood there with Jason's name burning into my eyes from the black notebook cover, the whole room pressing in like it wanted me out. My fingers hovered for a moment before I finally opened the notebook, almost hoping it would be empty. Hoping this was all some twisted misunderstanding. But the first page crushed that thought instantly. Her handwriting. Slanted, rushed, emotional. He still doesn't suspect anything. That was the first line. Below it, more scribbles. Thoughts. Updates. Lies that now read like confessions. Jason says I should tell him the truth, but I can't. Not yet. Emory would fall apart. He needs structure, not chaos. It was like reading my own obituary while still breathing. She wrote about me the way you'd write about a sick dog. With pity. With distance. With the assumption that I couldn't survive outside her shadow. I kept flipping through the pages, faster, angrier. He still folds my laundry. He still makes the bed when I leave for work. I think he genuinely loves me. But it's not the kind of love I want. Jason said last night that I deserve more. That I should be brave. He makes me feel alive. Brave. That word hit me like a punch. Like I'd somehow made her life a prison by offering consistency, by being decent, by showing up. I had never once yelled at her. Never hurt her. Never lied. But in her world, love meant adrenaline, not loyalty. The last page was worse. If it ever blows up, I'll just tell him it wasn't serious. He'll believe me. He always does. I closed the notebook and sat down slowly on the edge of the guest bed. The bed we bought for her parents when they visited, now converted into a private space for the man she shared more than secrets with. The air felt different in there, like I was breathing someone else's oxygen. I looked around the room again, really looked. A second charger under the desk. Gum wrappers. A hotel key card taped inside a drawer. Everything screamed that I had been living with a stranger. Or maybe I was the stranger now. The front door creaked. She was home. I didn't have time to hide the notebook. I barely had time to stand. The front door creaked again, closer now. A bag dropped. Keys on the table. Her footsteps in the hallway. Unhurried, like she had no idea her second life was collapsing one floor above her. I heard her hum. That same light tune she used to sing while folding laundry, only now it sounded like a mocking lullaby. I stood frozen in the middle of his room, clutching the notebook like it was radioactive. My pulse thundered in my ears, but my body refused to move. Then the sound stopped. She had reached the top of the stairs. A beat of silence. Then, her voice, casual, unaware, "Emory." I didn't answer. She moved closer. When the door opened, we both just stared. Her mouth parted slightly, eyes darting around the room in disbelief. I think, for a second, she thought she was dreaming. Or maybe she hoped I was. But there I was, standing in the middle of her secret life, holding the pages she'd never meant for me to see. She didn't say anything, didn't gasp, didn't panic. She just blinked twice, then leaned her weight against the doorframe like this was some inconvenient moment she'd just have to get through. I held the notebook up. "Jason," I said. She winced, barely, but it was enough. Then, finally, her mask cracked. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I laughed. I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because I had just read her describing how predictable I was, how I'd always forgive her. And right there, in that moment, she proved herself right. She still thought she could lie her way through this, like I hadn't just watched the wreckage of our life mapped out in her own handwriting. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely mine. "Why build a world inside our home and lock me out of it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked into the room slowly, picked up the hoodie on the chair, his hoodie, and held it like a child's blanket. "Because he makes me feel things," she said. And just like that, I knew. There wasn't a fight to be had. There wasn't a speech I could make or a truth I could force out of her. I had been deleted long before I found this room. This was just the lag catching up. She followed me downstairs like we were walking back from a funeral. Her feet barely made a sound. Mine felt like they were breaking through the floor with each step. I didn't look at her. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I had questions, yes, but what terrified me more was that I already knew the answers. I sat on the couch, the same one from the video. She stayed standing, hands fidgeting with the edge of Jason's hoodie, like she still wasn't sure which version of herself to become. Then she took a breath, the kind you take before telling a story you've rehearsed 100 times. And that's when I knew. She wasn't about to apologize. She was about to perform. "I never meant for it to go this far," she began, eyes avoiding mine. "At first it was just emotional, you know? I needed someone to talk to. You were always busy, always in your head. That's how it started. With blame. Like I was the one who opened the door to the secret room. Like my silence, my kindness, my predictability had created a vacuum too unbearable for her to live inside." She kept going, gently, slowly, unfolding a version of events where everything just sort of happened, and she was the poor, confused soul who got swept up in something beyond her control. "I was scared to tell you," she said finally, "because I knew you'd crumble." I flinched at that word. Crumble. Like I was a pastry. Like my love was delicate, easily shattered, disposable. I stood up. "You didn't stay because you cared," I said quietly. "You stayed because you thought I was too weak to walk away." She didn't deny it. Instead, she reached for my hand. And I let her. For a moment. Because part of me, some old, faithful part, still remembered what it felt like to be wanted, even if it was fake. Then I pulled away. "You used my kindness as a shield," I whispered. "And you thought that made you brave." Her eyes welled up for the first time. But I wasn't sure if it was guilt, or just the fear of having to lie to herself now, without me there to believe it. She didn't follow me when I left the house. Not this time. I stepped out into the late afternoon light with nothing but my car keys and the notebook still in my hand. The wind was colder than I expected, but it felt honest. For the first time in what felt like years, the silence wasn't a punishment, it was mine. I drove with no music, no destination. I just needed to be away. Not in anger, not in pain, just away from the version of me she'd written into her story. The man who would always forgive, always fold the laundry, always stay. I wasn't him anymore. That night, I checked into a small lakeside inn about an hour out of town. The kind of place where people don't ask why you're alone. I sat on the edge of the dock, watching the water ripple under the moonlight. I thought about how much of my life I had spent explaining myself to someone who was never really listening. And I realized I didn't need her permission to matter. I never did. The next morning, I made a list. It wasn't a revenge list. Not a make her regret it list. Just mine. Things I wanted to do. Places I wanted to go. A new apartment. A cooking class. Reconnecting with an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Simple things. Quiet things. But they were mine, and they felt real. I mailed the notebook to myself, sealed, unread from that moment on. A reminder, not of the pain, but of what I walked away from, and how long it took to realize I deserved to. Noelle texted again 2 days later. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Some messages don't need responses. Some connections time out, and that's the blessing. Because sometimes, the greatest thing someone can give you is the chance to finally be alone with the truth and make peace with it. What moment in this story shocked you the most? And what would you have done differently? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional real-life stories on Reddit Confessions.